I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. I'm here with Marc Picard today. We're gonna do something a little bit different. Marc's gonna interview me. This is gonna be the me episode, I guess. So yeah, you can tell I'm already uncomfortable. So we'll go ahead. I'll let you lead this one, Marc.
So for the people that are just listening to this episode, Jason is pretty much red right now, just so you know. He's not in a good place. So just to put you in context, so I'm Jason, podcast manager, and it's something I do with my clients. We sort of do a reverse episode because sometimes I've realized that I work with really busy individual like you, and you will need to talk about your schedule and all that. But anyways, I realized that lots of my clients don't have time to produce content that talks about themselves. So I sort of do a reverse type of interview. And so you get to know a little bit more the host. And you know, that's the way we're going to do that today. How are you today, Jason?
I'm good. How are you, Marc?
I'm good. So early morning in LA?
Yeah, it's 5:40 right now, 5:45.
5:40. Do you always wake up early like that? Are you like an early bird?
Yes, I've always been an early bird. I don't. I know some people have like, I get up at 4:30 every morning, but you know what I mean. I don't necessarily have a set. This is what time I get up, but most of the time I'm up by 5:30. You know, sleeping in for me is 7, maybe. So
Wow.
if the kids somehow let that happen, but yes, so I don't. It makes me feel like I'm wasting time if I get up too early, or if I
Is
don't
it
get up early. Sorry.
is it something that you change by having kids, or is it something you were always like that,
I've
or
I've kind of always been an early morning person. I'm not a night person. I
oh,
don't like staying up late. I don't do it very often, and I don't feel good when I do it. So I've just always been, I mean, I feel like even since I was a kid, it's just always been, you know, sort of early to bed, early to rise. Um, and once we had kids, it actually became even a little bit more important to do that on purpose because I can get things done before they wake up.
okay, so that's the main reason. So hey, can you I know, like, so we exchange a lot of WhatsApp messages and all that, but I'm really curious, and I know there's pretty much a lot of people that listen to this podcast that probably are curious as well. But what does your day-to-day schedule look like? Like, I'm really curious. So you're a vet surgeon, you have your own company,
Yeah.
you also, of course, there's the whole real estate thing that takes a lot of room in your life. But so okay, so at you wake up at 5-ish. What do you do? What is your schedule?
I either I either record an episode of the podcast like this. So that's one of the, you know, sort of openings on my Calendly that I use for the podcast recordings, because I know it's, you know, it's a time that I can be available, and I know a lot of people, you know, like yourself, are sort of ahead in the time in whatever time zone they are. So, and I do business in on the East Coast, so a lot of my sort of colleagues are essentially starting their day, you know, at 5:30, 6 a.m. for me. So it's a good time to get work done. If I don't have something like that, usually that means I'm getting up and going to the gym, because that's again another time that I can go and not impact my family. So
Okay, I
that's kind
see.
of the start of the day. It is usually pretty early, is to try to get something done before it's time to, you know, take care of kids or go to work. In terms of day to day, I mean, every day is a little bit different, but as you mentioned, I have a W-2 job as a veterinary surgeon. I also own my own business as a mobile surgeon, and then the real estate stuff on top of it. So the day to day is fitting the real estate around surgeries is probably in a nutshell what happens a lot during the day, except for early morning and at night. It's funny, we've recently been working on closing some deals, and it's gotten at the time of closing, it gets much more busy. There's a lot of phone calls, emails, people texting and all of that. And I've toyed with the idea of having headphones on in the OR, just so that I can continue to take those calls and things like that. Fortunately, it hasn't come to that. I don't really want to do that. I think it's obviously you need to focus on when you're doing surgery, so it's something that I don't want to do. But yeah, it's a little bit of a balancing act. There's definitely a component of it that gets hectic sometimes, and I don't intend to keep this schedule forever, right?
So what is it? So you need to be at work at what time? Like typical day?
Typically between 7 and 8. It depends
7 and
on
8.
sort of what kind of which job I'm doing, but yeah, typically it's going to start by 8 o'clock.
And then it's surgery after surgery until.
Yep. And then so my W-2 job is like anybody else's W-2 job. If I'm there, basically there, sort of 8 to 5-ish. It's when the surgeries are done is when I'm done. So it's not, being a veterinarian is definitely not like a 9 to 5 punch a clock job. It's sometimes it's all day because we're on call at night. So it's like there's times where I'm at work at 2 a.m. or something like that doing a surgery if there's an emergency that is necessary. My business, my mobile surgery business, I don't really do emergencies in that instance. And typically, at least at this point, the way I've got that structured is usually I'm usually done with whatever I'm going to do there by like between noon and 2 p.m. So it leaves me the afternoon, and that's also where I'll put in a lot of my real estate is on those, kind of second half of those days when I've done mobile work. So come home, record some podcasts, phone calls, do some whatever it is, do some underwriting, look at deals, that kind of thing. So I try to fit in the real estate that's not urgent wherever I'm not, doing other things. When it's urgent, I just have to do it.
I see. How long have you had that mobile surgery business?
This is year 4.
Year 4. And why you started to do that? Where was that coming from? Or
interesting. So I had a different W-2 job at the time, and to be honest, I was bored. It just wasn't a very busy hospital, and
okay.
I don't like being bored up, which may be obvious from the start of this conversation. I like to stay busy. It's funny that same time being sort of bored at work, is when I started my investing journey in general. So I often tell people that 5 years ago, my retirement strategy was don't retire. I wasn't gonna, that was my plan, like, which is a stupid plan now in hindsight, but that was my plan. I like work. So I'm like, I'll just keep working.
Yeah.
At that time I got into, I was rolling over some previous IRAs and things like that, 401ks. And we also had sold our house in Houston. And so we had kind of some money that I was like, I probably should do something smart with this money. Because up until that point, like a good example of how bad I was at this, I had an IRA account that I had opened maybe 10 years ago because an accountant told me, do you have, they were doing my taxes. She said, do you have a 401k at work? I said, no. She said, you should open an IRA. Okay. So I put in the maximum into the IRA for 2 years that I was there without a 401k. And that's all I did. I just put it in there. I didn't invest it. I didn't do anything. So I put like $10,000 into this account that literally was worse than putting it in a savings account, because an IRA, for people who don't know, if you don't actually either invest it yourself or give it to, or tell someone to invest it for you, it literally does nothing. It's just money sitting in, you might as well have it in a bag under your mattress. And so
Yeah.
I had done nothing good with that. So basically I used that time that I was bored at work to kind of figure out stock investing. I just was like, oh, I've never really done this before. Maybe I should start thinking about this stuff. So I started doing that, and call it luck, call it the market, whatever you want. It's done very well for me in these 5 years since I really started doing that, because I got to put in a chunk of money. So that's been helpful, in terms of, I guess, starting to build some confidence in terms of investing, and just realizing that you can take the information that's out there and learn and just be smart about it. It also taught me the very important investing skill of not panicking, because a lot of people, especially in the stock market, because we can have such big swings, will put their money in and see, have a day where all of a sudden things drop by 30% and they think they need to sell. And the reality is that that's actually when you should buy, because over time, as long as you're investing in good companies, over time, you're not speculating, over time, it's going to go up. And a perfect example for me, I had invested in Shopify, which is like Canada's Amazon, basically. I'd invested in Shopify at, I want to say like $70 a share. I just read an article and they're like, this is going to be a big thing. I invested in Shopify at $70 a share. It went up to like 150 over a year. It was doing really well. They had a bad day for whatever reason. It dropped down to like 110. I sold it all. It scared me. I sold it all. I was like, I'm going to cash out now. Shopify, for whoever doesn't know, is about $1,500 a share right now. So it's just a good example. And by the way, I bought back in, thankfully, but I panic sold, and people do that all the time. Like, we see what happens in the stock market. We see things like what happened with GameStop and AMC and all of that craziness that people that maybe are speculating, or just maybe just don't understand that the fickle nature of stock market, what that can do to you if you panic about it. And so I learned a good lesson there. I also learned that through that, I learned all of those things that can happen in stock investing. I also learned that if I want any of that money, I got to sell the stock, right? So it's really cool to look at my Robinhood account and see the number go up and up over time. But if ever I want any of that money, I have to sell the stock, and I just don't have it anymore. And so that's a big part of why now I'm so interested in real estate, right? Because real estate can give me money through the cash flow without even having to sell the asset, and it has tax advantages that stock doesn't have. So it's kind of I guess a little bit off topic of what you asked me, but that was probably, that job was when I realized that I needed to maybe start thinking about retirement, maybe thinking about, some of these things. And initially my thought of retirement was it was going to be the traditional way, through stocks and 401k and IRA. But your question was, how did I start that mobile surgery business? So like I said, I was kind of bored. Part of our salaries as veterinary surgeons is some of that's production. So like, if you're not doing a lot of surgery, you're not making as much money. And a friend of mine who was doing some mobile work as a cardiologist said, hey, this clinic asked me about a mobile surgeon. Would you be interested in that? And I was like, sure. I've always been, if someone presents an opportunity, like I don't say no, I'll say, yeah, let's talk about it. So I talked to them about it and started that, really with no intention of it becoming a business. And it has just grown. I've never marketed it once. I now have more work than I can actually handle in that business.
Perfect.
It's already, I'm too busy there. So it's something that has become bigger than I thought it would, but it works well. it's I like the control of my time with that.
Yeah, I understand. Just side note, people, I mean, I work in marketing, so I know the importance of marketing, digital marketing, and be on top of your social media and all that. But I feel we got lost sometimes in business. We got caught up into marketing is even more important than making a sale type of thing. We started to think this way, that business is the success of a business is directly linked to the marketing aspect of it. It's true to some extent, but at the end of the day, if you don't generate any sales, it means you're not in a market that there's a gap for your product. You know what I mean? There's no demand for your product already. So sitting in a business like your mobile business that you're already generating sales and you have no social media, you have no website, you have nothing, you are in the best position, because whenever you will decide to gear up and work a little bit your marketing, it's like you're going to pour gasoline on a little spark. I'm working for a company in Canada that they sell special effect makeup for movie set and pottery, like the kiln and the arts and craft type of thing. Before I started working for them, they were selling for about $400,000 a month, more or less. And I started working with them, and now they're at $500,000 a month in a matter of couple of months. They never did any marketing. They were just the only one in a certain very specific niche market, which is the special effect makeup market for cinema. There's not a lot of competition, but they were already sitting on sales. So you do a little bit of marketing on top of that and you blow it up. It's crazy. It's like, so you're in a really good position with that mobile business, because you never know, that can become part of your retirement plan type of thing, to still keep a foot in what you're passionate about, which is doing surgery, and having freedom of time, because I think that's the idea, and that mobile surgery, sorry, I'm interested, how does it work? Like, people call you and you show up in your car with like a surgeon kit, or how does it work?
Basically, yes. So
Yeah,
a lot of people think, oh, you're doing like surgery out of a van or something like that. That's not what it is. I'm just basically, when I work my W-2 job, it's in what we would call a specialty clinic. So essentially, at my W-2 job, the only thing that happens is specialty veterinary medicine, right? So it's like everybody who works there is either a specialist, a veterinary specialist, or they're an emergency doctor. So most specialty clinics are like 24-hour emergency plus specialty vets. So it's like surgeons, cardiologists, oncologists, like next level trained veterinarians. We don't do vaccines, right? So you wouldn't go to my specialty clinic for your dog's vaccines, or like the stuff that you go to your family vet on a regular basis.
okay.
When I do my mobile surgery, all I'm doing is I'm going to your family vet and doing surgery at their clinic. So
Okay,
you get to kind of, stay at home basically and have it at your regular vet. Now there are surgeries I can't do in the mobile clinic because of specialized equipment or tech needs or things like that. But I come with some bins of equipment. I bring my own techs. Like I bring specialty techs into the family veterinarian clinic. So we try to practice at a very high level. It's just in that, in a different environment. So there are differences, but it's, in terms of the surgery, it's still me. So it's, kind of the surgery side of it is the same. My techs are techs I would have and have had work for me in specialty clinics. So all of the, I guess, higher risk components of it are still the same, right? The anesthesia is basically still the same. The surgery is still the same. It's just a matter of, most family vets don't have like 24-hour care and things like that. So it's probably a little bit less, I guess, for intensive type procedures. It's not where we want to do it. But But I think there's definitely a component of, you know, taking care of pets that it fits in well for.
I see. Okay, so you're a vet surgeon. You realize that if you're not doing surgery, there's no income, so you're sort of, you have golden shackles type of thing. You realize that. So then, if I understand you well, you're like, I have a brilliant idea. I'm gonna open my own mobile clinic in order to, because I don't want to retire. I love what I do. And then you open that, and then you end up working as twice as much.
Right.
So then you said,
shackles on. Yeah.
yeah. And then you said, oh shit. So maybe I should do stocks, right?
Yeah.
So you went into stocks, and now you switch to real estate. Is that the idea?
Yeah. I haven't completely gotten out of stocks. I mean, I still have some money in stocks. I have
Okay.
Taken some of it out to invest in real estate, but no, I think diversification is a word that gets thrown around a lot. I think without understanding, right? People think diversification means one specific thing, but I think you could own 3 different stocks and be diversified, or you could have several businesses that you work in and be diversified. I think there's a lot of components to it. So yeah, I guess I've never been the person who thinks about things the same way as everybody else does. So I think I probably take a little bit of a different perspective about a lot of it. But yeah, I mean, the golden shackles thing is and was true. My mobile business has had every year so far 50% growth in revenue without any marketing. Like the marketing is my reputation. It's just people know that I do what I say I'm going to do, and I'm pretty good at surgery. So it's kind of it just works out well. And you're right. If I marketed it, if I marketed, I wouldn't have the time to keep up with the amount of work I would have. So it's yeah, it's been good. It's a good, I guess, diversification of my time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now what's up in real estate? What's going on? What are you working on like today? What's the
Yeah. I mean, currently focus of my real estate company, which is Lark Capital, is multifamily syndication. So essentially, just to define syndication for anybody who doesn't know, is basically using or pooling people's money together to buy an asset that is more expensive than perhaps one person could afford on their own. And generally you're going to have a segment of that syndication that is the managing partners, or the general partners as they're referred to, or the sponsors. And then you're going to have a segment of that syndication that's the limited partners, which are the investors, and they bring the capital. So that's kind of where it has gone for me. And the reason that it went to multifamily syndication for me, again, has to do with just time commitment, in terms of, like, real estate's not new to me. I've been in construction since I was probably 15. Like I worked in construction. It started as I helped my uncle build his house. I worked for contractors. I worked for an electrician. Like our current house that we live in, we stripped it down to the studs. Everything's brand new, and I did 75% of it myself. Like we hired out a few things that I don't like to do, like plumbing, but for the most part, like I can build a house. I know how to do that. So my mind in terms of real estate investing was always probably going to be construction or fix and flip. That's really what I saw myself doing and what I have always done. But again, I realized that would be basically throwing in another job. So it was kind of like, if I'm going to flip houses, I know myself well enough that I would not be good at handing that work off. Right. So if I flipped houses like close to me here in Los Angeles, I'd be in there working when I'm not already working. So it's just kind of I realized how much of a like time commitment that would be. And I think flipping houses in LA would be fantastic. Like the appreciation that happens here is great. You're not going to cash flow probably on multifamily, but the appreciation is great. So I'll do that someday with my kids because I enjoy it. I enjoy construction and I want to teach them those skills. But right now, it just, thankfully, I realized it didn't fit in without actually doing it, because I know that would have been something that just, sort of tied me up. So I worked through what some people work through by actually doing. They end up at multifamily. I sort of worked through it in my mind and through reading books and podcasts. Having said that, I have worked in the construction space, so it's not like I had no knowledge of what's involved, but I worked through it all and kind of came to the conclusion that my ability to scale and ultimately be more hands-off, although it's not hands-off in the beginning, is going to be through multifamily syndication. And for me, I see that as both being a limited partner and a general or managing partner at sort of taking advantage of both sides.
So you started this podcast exactly, I have the schedule behind my screen, exactly 45 episodes ago. Yep. So did you meet people through the podcast? Did the podcast brought you some deals or new knowledge or do you see any benefit of the podcast on your investing career as
I do. I
real
think
estate?
Definitely I've met people through the podcast, and I have had people reach out to me from the podcast. I think that I don't know if it hasn't necessarily brought any deals yet, but I think that it has helped me network in a way that I'm more comfortable with, because I'm very uncomfortable in like large group situations where like the networking events. And so I'm uncomfortable. Also, we had COVID, so there were sort of two reasons to not necessarily be at these networking events. I recognize that at some point I need to challenge my comfort zone once again and go to these networking events and things, but it has helped me do some of that networking in a different way, and talking to people, and I enjoy the conversations, and so it allows me, then we meet people I stay connected with and follow up with and stuff. And so and some of the people I've met, I've been able to then bring them as guests on the podcast. So it's kind of I think has been helpful, and I think it will probably over time, as it becomes more known, it will also get it will help more and more.
No, for sure. You never know, because now you will enter into a guy that know a guy.
Right. Yep.
A guy that knows a guy. You need someone that is specialized in XYZ. You will know someone that know that someone. Yeah. As the more your network will grow. But are you currently working on any deal? Like, are you did you close recently on I think you went for a storage unit. I think that the last time we spoke, we did an episode together. It was the storage unit in Atlanta, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So the storage unit deal is closed. That closed July, and that's in actually Mississippi. So that one was kind of an interesting. This actually came about from networking, just from being introduced to person who knew a person who knew a person. They were like, "Oh, you should talk to this guy," and when I did. Funny, I was supposed to be talking to them about multifamily, and they said they had gotten out of multifamily and switched to self-storage because they felt like the returns were better. And they were like, "You have any interest?" Sure, I have interest. Like I said before, if I presented an opportunity, I'm not gonna just say no to it. So I said, "I'm interested, talk about it." Turns out, we ended up doing a joint venture, a group of us on these self-storage units. Thus far performing fantastically. So it's really going well. And I think very happy to be in that deal. In terms of, sort of my own multifamily deals, we have 2 under contract in Atlanta. The first one was was supposed to be closing today. Last week had a bit of a kind of implosion from the lender side. Basically, long story short, essentially there was some issues with the seller's side and their reporting. When you're going for agency debt, which is government sponsored debt, there are a lot more hoops to jump through. They really are going to be, they're essentially constantly reevaluating the deal. And so if at any point, the I's aren't dotted and the T's aren't crossed, they're gonna change things. And so they changed things at the very last moment for us. As we record here, I'm, or when we finish recording, I will probably be spending the rest of this day trying to see if I can salvage that deal. So this is a thing that happens. This is I'm not the first person that this has happened to. I've heard other people tell the stories. This had happened. Fortunately, I think a lot of the times, the sides figure out a way to make it work. There are a lot of different debt options, and so we can switch to something called bridge debt, but it takes a little bit of time to get that in place. And so we need to have sellers that are willing to allow that to happen. And so it's just what I've learned a lot along the way in these deals is that sometimes it's like herding cats, because you're just trying to getting one person to, fill out a piece of paper that needs to go to this person. And there's just things constantly happening. And you're sort of, as the managing partner, your job is really to make sure those things happen, right? It's not even necessarily like, I don't have to do everything, but I need to make sure that those things happen. So there's a lot of coordinating and, putting those puzzle pieces together. And every time you come up to a roadblock, you got to figure out how to get over it. So it's kind of, it's like I said, it's just a constant, sort of one hurdle, another hurdle, another hurdle. Let's okay, there's the hurdle. Let's not get upset about it. Let's figure out how to fix it. Right. So it's surprisingly similar to what can happen in surgery, right? It's just something that I think a lot of people would think veterinary surgeon has nothing to do with real estate. And in a way, sure, it has nothing to do with real estate, but at the same time, those skills that I have developed as a surgeon, like I can't quit in a surgery, right? Like if it's not going my way, it's not happening, I can't quit. Like if I'm fixing a fracture and it's not coming together the way I want it to, I can't stop. I can't just be like, sorry, sorry about your leg, dog. Like, no, I have to fix it. And so I have tried to bring that, not even like unwillingness to quit, like inability to quit. That is that's how I look at it. And I don't quit anyway, but I look at it, there are certain things in life, like I can't quit on my kids, right? I can't quit in a surgery. So I won't quit on these deals. I don't look at it as an option. So it's kind of, that doesn't mean that I don't have days where it's like, oh, this is really terrible. Right? There's not days where you don't feel like that. And I don't want to give people the impression that it's like, you never have that, but it's just, if that's not an option, then what happens? That's kind of how I say, like, if I can't quit, then okay, I better figure out how to fix it. So that's kind of what I've tried to take that mentality into real estate as well.
You would be a good ultra runner for sure.
Yeah.
So you have one deal that you're going to salvage today, and you have another one that is working out, no?
Yeah. The other one,
What's the other one?
should close in December, also in Atlanta. So they're actually about a mile and a half apart from each other, and so they actually have a lot of good synergies. So we want them both to close because they'll have benefits. They'll benefit each other having both. So we want them to close for a number of reasons, but yeah, that's certainly one of them. So yeah, we have two going on that the other one's fine. It's on track. We encountered some hurdles along the way there. We had to actually, same thing, had to sort of adjust our debt structure from what we initially planned. that involves some renegotiation with the seller there, so there were components of it there that we may have to go ahead and sort of do the same on the other one. But it's, again, it's just an obstacle, right? It's an obstacle that has a solution, and so we'll find the solution. And
that's the thing, you never know. It's the same thing in marketing. Like, sometimes some clients will ask me something and I really don't know. I need to do so much research, because it's a world that constantly change. The platforms are changing. Facebook is changing right now. Instagram is changing. With the metaverse that we should talk about. Hey, okay, let's talk metaverse. Let's talk about it.
okay.
Are you aware of the impact that thing is going to have on your business and on the real estate business? Are you aware of that? Did you ever think about that?
No, I hadn't
Okay.
thought about that. I mean, I know how, like, Facebook is so big and integrated that changing the name of it even is just, it's going to cause a lot of headaches, I think. And
Oh, that's for
I don't know how
sure.
it's going to impact me, I guess, but I have thought about that a little bit.
So the metaverse is a digital universe. All right. So basically, you can have a house, a digital house, and you live in it, and you can hang out with your friends virtually and all that. All right. It's the continuity of what we're already doing. We're socializing through a platform. All right. But think about it, someone that sort of grow up with this type of technology, I'm wondering what type of home that person will have.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not sure if they're going to go in that huge mansion and that huge lifestyle, and that, you know what I mean? Maybe society will move towards a more minimalistic lifestyle, because the digital world will be so rich.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. Or it's going to be the other extreme. People will have huge mansion, bigger than before, to sort of match the digital world, what the experience in the digital world. So we don't know. It's very, very interesting. And the other thing that you should pay attention is, we could start talking about digital real estate. You
Yeah.
could buy a 3D asset, using NFTs.
Yeah.
So using the blockchain technology, there's only one house that you design digitally and you sell it. We're going to create digital real estate investors. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Roblox, the little game Roblox, your children are a little too young for that, but they might play Minecraft or Roblox or things like that. It's already happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy how this will impact the vacation rental business, for example. You could rent a virtual mansion for like 2 hours with your friend, and there's games in it, and you pay per hour. You know what I mean? Spend a weekend in a virtual mansion. It's not my type of trip, but people will do it. It's crazy. That's gonna be, if I was a real estate investor right now, that would be my top priority, to get informed on every single aspect of metaverse, because this is gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Interesting. Yeah, I know I hadn't thought about it at all, but yeah, that's fair.
Oh, it's not a small thing.
But I totally could see that being a thing where people are just virtually vacationing and all of that. Yeah, it makes total sense.
Or imagine an agent. So you sell property in LA, and you want to sell a property to someone that lives in New York. You have a perfect 3D rendering that the person can walk inside the actual building.
Yeah.
And that sort of already exists, but it's nothing compared to what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It's sort of already, you can do, if you're trying to rent out an apartment, you can, sort of stage that apartment, film your sort of walkthrough, and then have it be for potential tenants can look at that and be essentially know exactly what the apartment's going to be like without ever going in it. So I think, yeah, that technology is already happening, and it's only going to get, yeah, I think about that, what the way that technology has changed things just in my life. And I think about like what my kids are going to, just what's going to be, in another 20 years, what it's going to be for them, that it's just going to be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, we're going fully digital. And the beauty of it is we're starting to understand those technologies. And I think the more we will evolve, less we will think the digital world and the real world. It's not going to be one thing or the other. It's going to be
Yeah.
just one world, and there's a chunk that is digital because we're already in it anyway, and one part that is physical because we're in it, and we're going to start living on both world. It's going to be crazy. Talking about that, how is the social media going? How is the
I was just thinking, as you're saying that, we're gonna be, we're gonna be living in both worlds. I'm like, who, I'm gonna be bad at that, because as you know, social media is not my specialty. I very thankful to you for your guidance and help with all of it, and content creation. But I mean, it's going well because I have you, right? That's what I think it is going well. I think there's being able to put out the content from the podcast and everything is good, and having your guidance as to what are the right things to put on there and all of that, it's very helpful. So I think it's going well, but I think that I I realized that I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatever, but when I'm doing things, I'm doing them, and I don't think to pull out my phone and take a picture or a video every time I'm playing with my kids, right? Like I see that, I'm like, oh, cute, I want to take a picture of this sometimes, and I do take pictures, but it's not like I don't have the mentality of I need to do this so that I can, sort of document it on my social media. When I'm at work and I'm doing surgery, I'm not thinking like I need pictures of this. And I know you tell me like, well, you need to show people what's in your day to day. It's not even so much that I don't want to, or want, somehow want it to keep it a secret. It's just not my mindset to always be doing that, right? And
yeah.
I see, people, obviously people do it, right? Social media is huge. It's just not been, it's a hard shift for me to make, and like
Okay,
think of
so
that specifically.
my advice to you is you still think like a user. You still think, you don't think like a marketer, you think like a user right now. The user will post their daily routine. You know what I mean? They're going to wake up in the morning and here's my coffee. Here's my coffee. Here's my breakfast. Here's my child eating my breakfast. Here's me going to work. Here's me at work. They're going to do a real-time documentation of their life, which is okay. All right. Which is okay. Marketers, what we do is we create a strategy. So obviously you cannot drop down your scalpel and all your tools and taking a selfie when you have a dog that is about to die on the surgery table. That you cannot do that. And I think it's a wonderful thing that when you do something at 100%. That don't ever change it. However, maybe 2-3 hours per month, you could dedicate 2-3 hours per month to create content, because between what I create for you for the podcast, and between like the covers and all the artwork and the micro content and all that, you have like 1 or 2 posts, maybe a week, that is like up to you. But maybe investing 2-3 hours a month and gathering content and say, okay, I'm going on a hike with my family. I'm going to just take 10 pictures of that. That's going to be the picture I'm going to post for the month. And that's it. I think that will be beneficial because yes, we need to enter in your world. You need to welcome the people in your world, in your life. But no, you cannot do what you just said. You cannot start, in the middle of a surgery, taking a selfie and not being with your children and thinking about creating content when you're with your children. This is fucked up. You need to enjoy your children while you're with your children. That's totally That's totally normal, but you need to start thinking like a marketer, saying, okay, I need some content in the bank, type of thing. So you could even think about, oh, can I reuse some of those older posts? For example, go back to the first interviews, and you could absolutely repost some micro content. So the little video I create for you, you can absolutely repost that, and sort of, or you could post something that you took a picture of something a month ago, you could post it today, but
Yeah.
the idea is to always sort of carry that bank of content. No influencer, I'm telling you, no influencer that really makes it, and they earn it, they're living on Instagram or whatever, no one does it without having a strong bank of content. It just doesn't exist.
Makes sense.
You never want to run out of content. You want to gather it, put it in a file in your phone, and when you're ready to post something, you just go in that bank, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know so you
Yes.
need to think about a marketer. Is there anything else you want to talk about before I ask those questions to you?
No,
Is there anything else that comes into mind?
no, I think the questions will probably be a good next topic. I think we'll hit some more answers there.
That's cool. So, all right, I'll try to do it as well as you do. So this last part of the podcast is linked to the name of the podcast, Know Your Why. So you believe in the power of the why. So Jason, what is your why?
Yeah. I mean, it's my family. It's my kids. As I said, I worked. I've always worked a lot. That's not new. Even that's not a recent thing. It was always kind of like, oh, I want to make a little more money. I'll pick up another job. I'll do something on the side, whatever it was. But when I when my son was born, he's 2.5 now. When my son was born, I was immediately struck by, I if I keep this up, I'm going to miss everything. I've already missed a lot of things. Like I remember it, throughout my life. Like I said, I've been working for forever. I worked for my uncle, who I said, helped him build his house, but he had a pressure washing company, right? So we washed big trucks, like the semi trucks. I worked for him for 15 years, I think, something like that. And on weekends and summers and all of that. I started when I was 12 or 13. And I I thank him for instilling in me the work ethic that I have. I give him credit for that. But I know now that I missed a lot of things because of work. I know he's missed a lot of things because of work. And it's a difficult thing, I think, to balance as a father, being the provider, but also being there for them, right? And so like 20 or 30 years ago, you weren't supposed to be there for them, right? You were supposed to be out working and sort of being just the provider. But now, and I don't really care what I'm supposed to do. That's not I don't mean to say that that's how I base things on. I want to spend time with them. So it's just, I was struck by, if I can't make money some way outside of something that takes my direct physical being to be there, then I'll miss things. And I don't want to. I don't want to miss things. So when I started kind of digging in on real estate and, sort of deciding what strategy I wanted to do, and I told you, I know in construction, so fix and flip made sense. But when I started really thinking about it, it was going to be just another thing that, I can't bring them with me for a while, right? They're not going to be probably safe on a construction site for another
No.
4 or 5 years at least, right? So it's kind of like, I'm going to miss all those things. And so it just didn't fit with me. I started listening to a lot of podcasts. And in a lot of the real estate books, it talks about, you need to have a strong why so you stay motivated and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what I was struck by, and the reason I started the podcast, or the reason I called the podcast Know Your Why, and quite frankly, the reason why I in some day intend to have a nonprofit, like charitable foundation type of thing called the Know Your Why Foundation, like, is because what hit me when it came to doing real estate was, everybody talks about all these components of it, right? But the one that mattered most to me was hearing that you need to have a strong why. And so it's something that I think a lot of people talk about in the books and on the podcast and stuff, but I think most of the time it's kind of brushed over. But when I listen to other people's stories, the ones that make me inspired are the ones that they really have dug in and are driven by their why. So it's definitely my family first. Second is just giving back. Like I've always wanted to be able to be someone to help others, I guess. So it's kind of like, we didn't even talk about this, but I come from my background of we didn't have money growing up, and so for whatever reason, I took that, and our constant moving from sort of apartment to apartment every year was that I was never going to rent. That's like, I had, as a very young child, I guess I had a real estate bug in me or something like that, because I was like, I'm never going to rent. It's better to be the owner. Like, I figured that out quickly. My grandmother likes to tell the story of how I, as a young child, would draw a picture of the house that someday I was going to build, and there was a room for my grandmother in it, and like, it was just, I always knew that like, ownership was important. So and then that sort of evolved to, okay, I want that for myself, but I kind of see that that's what can be good for everybody, right? So I want to help people. I want to give back to my veterinary community, which I think a lot of people don't know this, but it's like first or second highest suicide rate of professions. I think with dentists, like, I think we go back and forth for the title of most suicides between veterinarians and dentists, which is I think unknown outside of the profession. But I have no suicidal thoughts or tendencies, but I can tell you, I understand, working as a vet, why it's high. I can see what it does to people, and so I want to use my real estate platform to help veterinarians.
Why do you think the suicide rate is so high?
Oh, this would be like an entire another podcast about this. In a nutshell, overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated. So nobody goes into veterinary medicine to make money. Right? Okay. That's not a thing. Like, nobody, when you're a kid and people are like, what do you want to be? If your parents are like, this is how you can make money in the world, no one ever says veterinarian. And there's a reason for that. My uncle that I just talked about, when I was young and I said I want to be a veterinarian, he said, you should not be a veterinarian. There are no nice cars in that parking lot. Like that, like, he told me that that's a bad profession to go into. And it's true. Like, from a financial standpoint, it's a terrible profession to go into. I don't want my kids to be vets. Like, I will guide them away from it for all of these reasons. But one of the reasons, like, a lot of vets now that come out have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in student debt. Wow. So starting your career in which you're not going to make a lot of money unless you kill yourself working hard is pretty daunting to kind of that's how they start, right? I see these young kids now, like, I say kids, like, because they're because I'm old and they're mid-20s coming out of vet school. I see them coming out with all this student debt, and they just want to help animals, and it's they're going to have trouble taking care of their families while they're trying to help animals. And so and then knowing that, and then seeing how some clients will be abusive to the staff or the doctors or whatever. And basically because still people think that veterinary, and I will say we do this to ourselves in the community, in the industry. People think veterinary medicine should be free or should be almost free, despite the fact that we're basically providing the same medical care as when you go to the hospital. So we have the same costs. We have MRI, we have CT, we have all the surgical equipment. We have all the same stuff. We have people that have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and need to pay that debt back. We have all of that same financial burden that MDs would have, or lawyers would have, or any of those, like highly schooled individuals, and then make a fraction of what they make. And don't get me wrong, I have figured out how to make some money, but I told you how much I work, right? So it's like you pretty much have to own your own business, and you have to work in it all the time. That's how you can make some money as a vet, which is not really it's not sustainable for quality of life. And so so I tell you these things because this is why the suicide rate is high, right? It's like, if you're already buried in debt and you're working 60 hours a week just to pay your rent and your student loans, and you're getting abused by the clients every day, like, why would you keep doing that? Yeah. So either people leave veterinary medicine, which is happening a lot, and I think people that don't appreciate their vets should realize that it's very difficult to get into a vet right now with COVID. For whatever reason, I guess everybody was home and decided to get another pet, but the number of pets in the US increased by like over 1 million. It was like some crazy amount. And so we thought we would get slower when COVID happened, but instead the workload has about doubled. And so it's insanely busy now, busier than it was before. And so like people can't get in, right? And so if you don't start realizing that this is a service that has costs associated with it, and you're going to have to pay with it, and you should pay for it, and you should probably treat your vet well, they're not going to be there, because they're either going to leave the profession or they're going to leave the earth. And neither of those things are fair. Like, neither of those things are good. It's not good for those veterinarians. It's not good for the pets, right? Like one of my things that probably the one thing about my job as a veterinary surgeon that I really don't like, and it sometimes makes me want to leave the profession, is being on call, right? Like working all day long and then knowing that I might still have to go in and work in the night, right? That's brutal. But guess what? If I don't do it, who's going to do it? Yeah. Right? If I don't do, the reason I go in at night is because that pet is going to die if I don't. That's what an emergency surgery is. And so if I don't do it, what happens? Right? So I can't not do it. Right? It's just like, I can't. And that's the stuff that we, as vets, that's the stuff that we deal with every single day. Right? Like that's those like things that mess with your mind. Like how can you do that for 40 years? Yeah. Right. So it's like, and
the lack of recognition, I think plays a lot, because people don't put nothing in perspective. They're just like, oh, you're a vet, you're a vet surgeon, you're a doctor, oh, you're rich, your life is easy. People just think this way. That's it. Oh, you're a lawyer, their life is easy. Yeah. And you're like, no, I'm working 60 hours a week, I'm on call, I have no freedom, I'm tired, I'm white, like, because I don't sleep, I'm all pale. People don't put anything in perspective.
All those things about me, Mark. I appreciate it.
No, you were red. Now you're a little less
you're
red.
A mess.
Yeah. Okay, so the other question you ask to the guest usually is, tell us something that we don't necessarily know about you, something or secret you're comfortable sharing, something that you love doing that you don't share it with us, or anything.
It's funny, when I ask this question all the time, I think it stumps a lot of people, and I have thought about what would I say, and I think probably the thing that most people don't know about me that don't know me well is I have and love tattoos. So I think that's I think that's a thing that people don't expect when they look at me or know me. Uh, and they're all hidden because I've always thought I need to be able to hide them with a shirt because of my job. So I that's probably what I would say. That's my my
And
secret reveal.
are you fully tattooed? Like, do
No,
you
no.
have
I
like,
mean, I have like 5 on my back and
okay,
shoulders, but I would
really?
happily have a sleeve and stuff. I really like tattoo. I like them on other people. I think a good tattoo is very, very artistic, and I think it's like a commitment level also to to do that, to like they have to mean something. Like every one of my tattoos means something. Some of them were, I have an uncle who's a graphic artist, like a couple of them he drew. Like I have,
Really?
they all mean something. I intend to get tattoos that are representative for my kids. Like I just like them. I like the artistic nature of it. I think I like them on other people. Like I don't know.
It's
So that's
funny
probably
how, yeah, it's, you don't look like a guy that is into tattoos
right.
uh,
Yep.
at all. I
Nobody
know
ever like
it's like the, I don't know if you remember when we were doing the branding of the podcast and I was asking you like, hey, what, I don't know, send me some music that you envision for your podcast, the vibe that you send me, like what it was, Eminem,
Eminem.
NWA or something like that. I was like, what? That guy is a
Yeah.
gangster.
Yeah, no, I definitely my mom I oh here's a second thing to that. I used to be in a band. So there like
Oh,
we had a garage band when I was younger. So that's probably another thing that a lot of people that don't know me well, but
what
the
do you
reason I
play?
even bring that
What do you play?
I sang and played guitar.
Oh, really?
I
Nice.
mostly sang. I'm not a particularly good guitar player. I enjoy it, but I don't know. I'm not a particularly good singer. It was fun to be in a band. Like it was with my friends. I just, I love music, and I loved, kind of that bonding time that we had. So it was fun when I feel like we were decent when we worked at it, but we just all had jobs and other, you know what I mean? It was just like life got, life got in the way, but yeah, my mom would always be like, why do you listen to angry music? And I was like, so I don't have to. Me, it's like a representative. Like it takes my anger from me. It takes any of those like life, stresses that you have, or like the things that um, you know, people use from their childhood that they're like, I'm going to let this ruin the rest of my life. I'm like, I'm not going to let it ruin the rest of my life. I won't be a victim. And but when I hear music, that's why I like rap, because I like the lyrics, right? So
Okay.
that's what I like about music. I don't love music that doesn't have words, because I think the lyrics have a lot of meaning. So that's kind of, I guess that's when when you said what would what would fit, and it's like, obviously we can't use Eminem as the opening to the
No.
thing, but it's kind of like that's music does mean a lot to me. So it's not, if you got on my Apple or my Apple iTunes or whatever, it's very, very varied. Like there's the
So
Beatles and
cool.
Eminem and Tool and Adele, and like I'm just trying to like, it's just kind of everything. I don't love country music. Maybe
Uh,
that's, my wife does, so it's, I have to listen to it sometimes. But yeah, she's
she's
from the
from the
South.
South, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's in her blood. But yeah,
So the other question you ask the guest, I'm gonna switch things around a little bit. Usually you ask the guest, what can I do for you? But I'm gonna I'm gonna ask you another question derived from that. I'm gonna ask you, what do you do for yourself every week to take care of yourself? What is the thing that you do only for yourself that is not linked to your family? It's not linked to your work, to your job. It's not a little something that, what is the gift that you offer to yourself, let's say every week? A little something you do just for you. It could be very small and stupid. Like I'm going to give you a really stupid example. Something I do besides running, one thing that I really love doing, I know it sounds really, really, I love to go get a smoothie. I know it sounds super dumb, but I love to park my car somewhere and get alone and get a smoothie. What do you want me to say? I'm that funky. But that's like,
Yeah.
that's such a gift for me. That's such a reward, you know? So do you have a little something like that, a little something that you do just for yourself? Like a gift that you offer to yourself on a weekly basis or something that you,
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I don't exercise.
okay.
I have a trainer. Like I pay a trainer. People talk a lot about, especially in the real estate space, like investing in yourself. Um, I I play soccer and I have a trainer, and I say that I do those things for myself, and 100% I do, but I also do those things for my family because I'm a different person if I don't get to exercise.
Yes. Oh
So
yeah.
I I I don't I don't have a quiet mind, right? I don't know. I don't relax well. Like going and laying on a beach or whatever. Like none of that stuff. It doesn't work for me because my mind starts to think about all the things I could be doing or should be doing. And so what I do for myself is what gets me away from that is exercise and music, right? Like people talk about, like how can you listen to music in surgery? And for me, it actually focuses me, and it's always been that way. Like music focuses me by taking away the part of my brain that's like maybe ADHD or whatever it is, like that part that's just like thinking. If I can just focus on the music that I like, then I can focus on what I'm doing, whether that be surgery or whatever it is. But yeah, to answer the question, it's exercise. Like I pay a trainer for a couple of reasons. He's fantastic. He deserves to be paid. There's no reason not to. However, for me, it's accountability and probably variability. Like I know how to work out. I've done sports my whole life. Like I know how to exercise. I don't need someone to teach me how to exercise. I need someone to come up with new things that will challenge me all the time, because otherwise I'll just do the same thing. Like I'll have 3 workouts and I do like the same 3 workouts each week. So I know if I have a trainer, he'll change those things up for me. I also know if I have an appointment to go work out with him, I will go work out. So I know I would easily let that slide if I get busy with other stuff. Like I just know myself enough to say, like, if I didn't have things scheduled to work out, then I would not work out and be like, look what else I can get done during this time. But it really, that's what I do.
Where do you train? What's the name of your coach, of your trainer?
The name of the place is Superior Barbell Club, and his name is Casey Forey. He's Strength by Casey on Instagram. But he's fantastic. Like I tell people all the time, like, well, on social media, I tell people, I post about it sometimes. Like, I don't think there's a better trainer in LA. Like I think that's saying a lot, because there's a lot of trainers in LA. like,
Yeah.
like it's a big industry here. But I just think in terms of what he puts into trying to better himself as a trainer, and I mean as a person, but like in the gym and in himself, like he wants to increasingly improve that like experience of the people that come to his gym, or that he trains. And he pushes me, and I joke, I'm like, I keep waiting for the day this is going to get easy, and it's never gets easy, but I getting stronger. So I'm and it's good. It's when I started with him, I mean, I've been working out with him for probably 3 or 4 years now. But like, one of the things that, back to sort of my why, one of the things when my son was born, like babies are on the floor all the time and stuff. My knees were in a pretty bad place from all the years of abuse through sports and things like that. I couldn't get up and down off the floor with him. Like it was it hurt to do that. I would do it because I wasn't going to not play with my son, but it hurt to get up and down. And I told Casey that I'm like, I gotta fix this. Like, I don't know. I've always had strong legs. I don't know what's going on. And he broke it all down. He does a lot of continuing education on sports science, nutrition, all of it. And now I feel better than I have like probably in 20 years.
You should have him on the podcast.
Yes, you're right. I should.
I think you should invite him on the podcast, you know.
Yeah.
It's important that you of course it's important to talk about real estate and all that, but I think you shouldn't be scared to have an outsider like this.
Well, and he's a business owner too. You know, he
perfect.
Him, so I think, yeah, no, you're 100% right, and I should.
Awesome.
He came on when I was doing the Sunday Night Live thing. He came on there. We did a thing with that. But yeah, I should have him on the podcast too.
Oh yeah. Let's have him on the podcast for sure. So I think that's a wrap. I'm gonna let you wrap this up.
Okay. Well, yeah. Thank you everyone for listening to a bit of my story. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. But yeah, and thanks to all the guests I've had in the past and the guests that I'll have in the future. I do. This was not a comfortable undertaking for me to start this podcast, but I'm really happy, and thank you, Marc, for guiding me through it. But I'm really happy I did, because I love the conversations. It's really been great. So with that, we will sign off. Have a great day.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.